Hello everyone, in this video I am going to discuss about the containers. Before discussing about the containers, we need to know why exactly the containers are used. What is the need for the container? Previously, as you can have a look over here, this is the dashboard. Okay, here we have the server. Right? We have the server, and these are the on-premise server onto which your application is deployed. Here is application onto which your application onto the server your application is deployed, and on one server you can deploy one application. The thing is that if your server is capable of handling 10,000 application, and as of now you are only deploying one application and you cannot add another application because its capabilities are different. The previous application requires Python 2 and your new application requires Python 3. In such condition you can only deploy one application onto the server. Therefore we came across something called as a virtual machines. Here what virtual machines used to do is that between these two things there is something called as a hypervisor. Wait a second. There is something called as a hypervisor that used to manage multiple operating systems. Here we have the server onto which we have the operating system. Wait a second, I just copy these all the things. Okay, this is this is the operating system onto which your application is deployed, but it is not a useful way. This is the traditional way. In the newer version we are introduced with something called as a hypervisor. And hypervisor are used to maintain multiple operating system. They used to maintain multiple operating system over here. This is the one and this is the second one. These are the two operating system onto which you can deploy your multiple application. This is the first application that is deployed on operating system 1, and this is the second application that is deployed on the operating system 2. This is how we used to move with a virtual system, like virtual machines. But virtual machines are also not that efficient because if your application your operating system is 2.2 GB and your application is using 100 MB, and you can only install one application on one operating system. In such condition your your operating system is providing 2.2 GB of memory and it is utilizing only 100 MB of memory. This is not a proper condition, because your operating system require, like your application required 100 MB, your operating system providing 2.2 GB, and there is a wastage of a 2.1 GB of memory. At a small scale there happens nothing, but at a very large enterprise level it will cause a huge loss. For that reason we came up with something called as a containers. What are exactly the containers? This is the application. If just think of it, it is a container. What exactly container used to do? This is a container, and I will just change the color so that it will become much efficient. Okay, looking okay. This is your application. And what application requires? If your application is a Django application, let's take example, your application is a Django application, and I'll just change the font to the TM Sans. Okay. This is the Django application. What Django application? Django is a Python web framework. Means it's the main thing that is required for Django is the Python, right? To execute any operation it require Python. Therefore Python is required, and along with that pip is also required. And after these two things, see, we are using a lot of packages inside this thing. These are just the libraries, right? These are the libraries that are required to run the Django application. But along with these things you require additional things. These along with these things you require some of the modules, packages, right? Packages that has to be installed in your system, and these three things are required, and only these things three things are contributing 100 MB of memory, and you are wasting your 2.1 GB of uh, the virtual machine memory, right? This is the thing. And here, this is the outside one is a container. The container is providing a environment to run your application, and in one environment to another environment there happens something, right? Like you are working on some project, and there comes another guy who want your project and want to contribute into your project, but when he installs everything what you have written, there are some things that are not working on his laptop or in his system. Why? Because there is some mismatch in the configuration or system configuration. In such case, these containers will help. What these containers will do, these containers will install some small operating system uh, in this thing. Okay, this is a small operating system that is installed, and it is managing some basic tasks. What are the basic tasks that it is managing? It is executing the binary files, it is executing the system binary files, it is saving some of the files in the root folder, and apart from that it is it is using some additional files, the configuration files, the environment files, and the user files, the libraries. It is doing only those things, and additional things it will take it from the virtual machine. Means we are not replacing any sort of virtual machines, we are running everything on top of the virtual machines. This Docker is like this container is running on top of virtual machines. On the top of virtual machine, a virtual machine is providing 2.2 GB, and in the 100 MB space we are using a container onto which we are deploying the Django application that is using only 100 MB of space, right? And like this we can use 100,000, 10,000, millions of container on the virtual machine. And this is why we use containers. Containers are the system environment. These are the software environments onto which you deploy your application, run your application, and port your application from one system to another system, and it will run smoothly. This is the use of a container. Container has very small and minimal operating system to maintain some of the basic tasks, like it will execute wait a second, what all things it does. It will execute your binary files, right? And apart from that it will execute some system binary files, SB, and apart from that it will execute some configuration of various systems that are present in your system, etc. And apart from that it is also executing some of root folder, saving and executing on the root folder, and it is also executing the user files, the variables, and a lot of things. Very good. See, these are the things that a container is executing. Apart from these all the things, it is deriving everything from deriving everything from the virtual machine or the operating system that is beneath it. Okay, this is the thing. And here we are using virtual machine. This is the virtual machine, and virtual machine is providing some essential resources to the containers. Container are not completely dependent on virtual machine. but they are dependent on some things. What are those things that a container is dependent on a virtual machine? The first and foremost thing is file system. First and foremost thing is file system. It is managing your all the file systems. First thing is your file system. The second one is networking stuff like calling, client server architecture, and networking. And the third thing is system calls. System calls. And fourth thing is spaces. And fifth one is control groups. These are the things that the container is asking from the virtual machine, like these are the things that I am unable to manage, please provide me these all things. The host file system, these are the file that Docker is able to read and write onto the host system. And apart from that, there is a networking stack used for the connectivity of the containers, and we have the control groups. We have a lot of things that are actually uh, from the virtual machine to this. Okay, this is all about the container.